This is a CBS News special report. I'm Anthony Mason reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York. At least 6 people are dead here in New York City after a truck rammed into pedestrians and cyclists on a bicycle path along the West Side Highway and the Hudson River. You are looking at the aftermath of the scene there. Again, we know at least six people are dead. More apparently injured in what the New York Police Department is calling a deliberate act. It happened about 3:15 Eastern Time. A truck, what appeared to be a Home Depot rental truck, went up onto this bicycle path and drove down it for about 4 blocks along to Chambers Street there, which is very near the heart of downtown Manhattan, not far from City Hall. What appears to have happened here is he went up a little further uptown, about 4 blocks, drove down this bicycle path, hitting anybody in his way. Ultimately, he ended up back in the middle of the street, came out of the truck after it hit another vehicle and started firing with 2 guns. Police ultimately apprehended the suspect. We do not have an identity at this point or anything more than the New York police, again, are calling this a deliberate act. DeMarco Morgan is down there at the scene. DeMarco, can you hear me, and what do you see?
Anthony, I can hear you well. I'm actually at the corner of Greenwich and Chambers, which is not too far from where the incident happened. Just got through speaking with a young man here who actually witnessed the incident. And we're going to try to get that video from his cell phone. But he has cell phone video of the young man that you're talking about with the 2 guns in his hands. And you can see the man with the guns in his hands as well, just yelling and running around. He said he saw what appeared to be someone driving a truck out of control, exactly what you just described. And he at first thought it was an accident, and then he realized there was much more than what he was seeing. You have a ton of people on every single corner out here, including a lot of high school students. Stuyvesant High School is not too far from where we're standing. Again, that's west in Chambers, so that area clearly is blocked off by police. This is a large investigation going on right now. Again, not calling it terrorism, but most certainly not ruling it out. We're waiting to hear from NYPD at any moment now. They just told us to head over to One Police Plaza, which is their headquarters here in Lower Manhattan. But, Anthony, it's just a couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center. You know, at this time, any time of the day during the week, it is packed full of people, people who work in the financial district, people who call the financial district home. It is the Mecca of our country, we can even say that, one of the busiest places to be at this time of day. So you can only imagine how many people were probably in that area at that time. Also spoke to a young lady out here who's a high school student. She didn't tell me which high school she attends. Not sure she's a student at Stuyvesant, but she said she saw multiple bodies on the ground. Again, she saw multiple bodies on the ground in that area, and she was telling us that people just started taking off, just running in every direction that they possibly could. But again, we do have some cell phone video that we're going to try to get to you shortly of a man who is believed to be the gunman walking around and running around with guns in his hands, 2 guns to be exact.
We should emphasize, DeMarco, that this area, this bicycle path, which runs parallel to the West Side Highway. The West Side Highway runs up and down the full length of Manhattan. It's, of course, it's a primary artery through the city. The West Side Highway in Lower Manhattan right now is closed as police and fire department and emergency workers deal with this. So a critical artery in this city has been shut down. That bicycle path can be very busy, particularly on weekends. It would be even today, a beautiful day in New York, about 55, 56 degrees. It is a place where people go to exercise, to ride bikes, to walk, to get to and from work even. There can be, tens of thousands of people along that pathway up and down Manhattan. If a car gets on there, people are open targets, and it runs right along the side of the city. It's not clear how this truck actually got onto the bike path, but for a truck of that size, it might not be that difficult just to jump the curb and get on the bicycle path and start driving. And from the initial eyewitness reports, and again, the early reports are very sketchy, it appears the man who drove this truck went about 4 blocks, hitting everybody in his way. DeMarco, what, if anything, can you see of the street down there? Well,
right now we can just see crowds of people, but you can see that NYPD, they pretty much has this area locked down. They're keeping people at a distance right now. You see tons of emergency vehicles, a ton of students, too, as well as folks who work there in the financial district. But I think the interesting thing is that you see a lot of students here who said they took off running. Many of the students that I got a chance to speak with said they had no other choice but to run for safety. So you can only imagine how they are feeling right now. School was just letting out, and then you run into something like this. You're screaming to yourself, wait a minute, what just happened? We also talked to another young lady who said it was just a matter of time. She, just knew that something like this was possible since it's happened in so many other places across the entire world. It was just a matter of time that something would happen like this here in Manhattan. But, Anthony, you talked about that bike trail. I take that bike trail a lot. Many people rent bikes where you can rent them for just a couple hours, and you enjoy the trail there along the West Side Highway. You are right. Tons of people are on that bike path at any given moment, especially around this time with the amount of people who bike to work as well.
To recap the details that we know so far, at least 6 people are dead after a truck jumped the curb and went onto the bicycle path along the West Side Highway in Manhattan. Police are calling it a deliberate act, and they are investigating. Our law enforcement sources say they are investigating it as a terrorist attack. This truck, from the images that we've seen from the scene and what people are describing it as, appears to be a Home Depot rental truck, a pickup truck, that the suspect drove down the bike path, hitting everybody in his way, cyclists, pedestrians. You can see the bicycles scattered there along the pathway. The truck then ended up, from what we can tell, in the street, and the gunman emerged from the truck with 2 firearms, as we've been described, and DeMarco has seen video that corroborate that. He was taken into custody, and reports are he has been taken to Bellevue Hospital here in New York, but we know at this point no more than that. DeMarco, what else are you seeing down there?
Well, right now, everybody's sort of huddled around this guy that you're talking about that has the self-film video that we just witnessed here with our own eyes. The man just running around with 2 guns in his hand, and police trying to get him under control. You just said it. They got him into custody right now. But you still see a lot of people trying to make their way through home, trying to get through some of the blocks here that are blocked off, the streets that are blocked off by police. Investigators walking around, appearing to be asking questions of folks, witnesses, possible witnesses who may have witnessed what happened. They told us about 30 minutes ago, about 20 minutes ago, that they would give us an update in about an hour, so we should learn more about what's going on. But they did tell us that they are not ruling out that this could indeed be a terrorist attack or an event of terrorism, an act of terrorism here. They are calling it, like you said, a deliberate act. But a lot of people just wondering what happened, why it had to happen. And some of the students that I've been speaking to, again, who are a bit shaken up because of what has happened, told me that many of them just took off running for shelter, running for safety when that indeed happened. It happened on that bike trail, so that's very close to Battery Park. This is the Battery Park area here. You got a lot of families, a lot of small children who are also along that bike trail, some of the playgrounds in that area, a lot of shopping areas. You have Westfield Mall down here. So there are, at any given moment, thousands and thousands of people, not just New Yorkers, but those who also commute into the city from New Jersey and some of the other states as well that are working. So it's very congested right now. Again, we're being pushed back. I don't even think we can get any more people on this sidewalk with so many people here as emergency vehicles continue making their way through to the scene. We've seen 2 or 3 ambulances, also FENY ambulances trying to make their way down through here. I'm not sure what pictures you may have, Anthony, but it is a lot of people, a large crime scene, and it will get bigger and bigger before the night is over.
DeMarco, there has been some confusion here in the early aftermath of this incident, which again occurred about 3:15 Eastern Time. There were gunshots heard. Some people actually thought when then the suspect jumped out of his van that this was some kind of Halloween prank of some sort. But it appeared the New York Police Department has tweeted out that the suspect, when he got out of his vehicle, was displaying imitation firearms, and he was then shot by the New York Police Department. So it appears at least some of the gunfire that was heard in the vicinity was from the New York Police Department, although some of the witnesses believe that the man driving the truck was also shooting out from the truck, although we have not confirmed it. That is the truck right there you're looking at with the orange Home Depot logo on it. It appears to be a rental pickup truck that the suspect, again, we do not have his identity, drove onto a bicycle path along the West Side Highway of Manhattan and hit pedestrians and bicyclists for about 4 blocks before he hit another vehicle and came to a stop, exiting, as I said, exiting that pickup truck with what appeared to be firearms, but they proved to be fakes. And the New York police then shot him and apprehended him, and he has been taken to Bellevue Hospital. Once again, at least 6 people are dead in this incident. In New York PD calling it a deliberate act. They are investigating it as an attack of terrorism. We are awaiting details as they come in here. There isn't much yet beyond what I have told you. This all unfolded at 3:15, so only an hour and 15 minutes ago. It was over very quickly, but there was a significant impact here, and we don't know at this point how many injured there are beyond the 6 who have been reported dead at this point. But initially there were more injuries reported. So we are waiting for more information on that. As DeMarco Morgan told us, we are awaiting any official word in a press conference from the New York Police Department down there, but they are still trying to gather facts. And a major section of New York City around the financial district, the World Trade Center, and New York City Hall has been closed off. The West Side Highway in the lower part of Manhattan has been shut down for a time. The FDR Drive on the other side of Manhattan, which is the opposite major artery on the other side of the island, parts of that were shut down for a time and may still be as they tried to evacuate victims to Bellevue Hospital and other hospitals over there. DeMarco, what are we anticipating in terms of any word from the police department at this time?
Well, right now, again, he was very tight-lipped. I tried to get as much as I possibly could just from knowing the young man from working at one of the local stations a couple of years ago. But he wouldn't let on to any of the information. But he did say that we would have an update. I'm looking at the video right now, Anthony. We're going to try to turn this around just so we can get it to you. But it shows the man with what appears to be guns in his hands. Not sure if they're real guns or fake guns, but he's running in the middle of traffic. You see a number of taxis, the traffic is stopped. You see people getting out of the cars. We also see cops trying to subdue the suspect. Again, we're going to try to turn this video around so you can get it, but we're hoping to learn much more. Right now, it's a large police presence. The response from NYPD has been somewhat incredible, to say the least. Even the way that they have been able to block off some of these streets and control, again, not just hundreds, but the thousands of people who are in and around this area. So we're hoping to hear something within a couple of minutes. They told us to head off to One Police Plaza, which is the headquarters right here for NYPD. So we have producers headed in that direction. Right now, I'm trying to get to the man who shot this video. We got the video from to see if we can ask him some questions, but he's swarmed by a ton of media as well. But we're just trying to figure out, again, was this an act of terrorism? Was it some type of prank? Clearly that turned deadly. Was it intended to be a prank, or was it intended to be an act of terrorism, or just someone who just wanted to kill? And for whatever reason, they may have wanted to do so. That person has been subdued by police, and as you've been reported, Anthony, has been taken to Bellevue Hospital here in the city.
We want to show DeMarco a tweet that the New York Police Department sent out a little while ago, which is among the little information we have. As you see, it says the vehicle continued south, striking another vehicle. The suspect exited the vehicle displaying imitation firearms and was shot by NYPD. PD. It appears from images we've seen at the scene there was a school bus that was hit, but we do not know if or how many, or even if actually there were children on the school bus at this point. You can see by images we've shown you already that the suspect's vehicle, the Home Depot rental truck, had significant impact on the front end. As that tweet pointed out, the suspect, after his vehicle was severely damaged, got out with 2 fake firearms, and police then shot and apprehended him. We have Fran Townsend, our CBS News national security analyst, on the line. Fran, the circumstances here are pretty disturbingly similar.
They are disturbingly similar, Anthony. And, you know, we've seen multiple car-type attacks in France, for example. We saw the big one in the pedestrian area in Spain. And so we don't know right now what the driver's motivation was, but we've seen increasingly the use by individuals of common objects like cars, knives, and guns to launch these sort of terrifyingly simple attacks.
We just saw an image of Mayor de Blasio, who is arriving at the scene. Fran, I'm looking at this piece of real estate here in question that the suspect drove the van down. I'm sure you're very familiar with it. It's right along the West Side Highway. It would be so easy for a car to drive up onto this bicycle path and hit people.
Right. I mean, and that's always the concern, right, with these pedestrian ways. You try to protect them as best you can, but it's very difficult in an area and a roadway as long as West Side Highway with multiple lanes of traffic. You provide some small distance between a bike lane and the traffic lane, but if someone's determined to jump a curb or go into the bike lane, it's nearly impossible to stop them.
Yeah, and you would have to put up, severe concrete walls down that stretch of road. And as I've said earlier, the West Side Highway runs the length of Manhattan, and so there are many points you could actually enter to the bike path there. That may be the mayor's vehicle going through, I'm not sure, but the mayor has arrived at the scene. I want to bring in Pat Milton, who is the CBS News investigative producer. And Pat, if you can hear me, can you tell me, what, if anything, we know at this point?
Well, we're learning that from law enforcement sources that they are investigating this incident as an act of terrorism. We know that there are multiple people that were killed. We're getting at least 6 people are dead and multiple injuries. We've got some reports of as many as 15 were injured, all being taken to area hospitals. We also know that the alleged suspect, the truck driver, was shot in the leg, and he has also been taken to the hospital and is in police custody.
Pat, there seem to be conflicting reports about gunfire at the scene, because some of the witnesses initially said they thought that the truck driver was firing from the vehicle, but we do know the police fired on the truck driver once he got out of it.
Yeah, that's very unclear. Of course, as you know, it's a tremendously fluid situation, and they're interviewing numerous eyewitnesses and trying to see. There has been reports that he had a gun, and whether it was a fake firearm or not, it's unclear.
Do we know anything also, Pat, about there is a school bus at the scene that appears to have been hit? Do we know if there were any kids in that bus and if anybody was injured?
That is unclear. We know that Stuyvesant High School is in the vicinity of where this truck eventually came to rest. It's unclear what happened with the bus. There's been some reports that are not confirmed that the bus was rammed broadside as it was traveling east to west across the bike path.
Right. And did the truck end up back in the street, Pat?
It came to rest on Chambers Street, okay. And we're getting information that it was a rental truck. It was apparently rented as a Home Depot rental truck.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. I want to bring back Fran Townsend. Fran, if you're an investigator on the scene here, what are you looking for?
So first and foremost, Pat mentioned that it looks like it's a Home Depot rental truck, right? So they'll pull immediately the rental papers. They'll look for any addresses associated with the truck driver. They will look to find either his home or an apartment, and they'll get a search warrant to go in there to see if there's any indication. What they're trying to understand pretty quickly is what was the motivation. Until they know that, they've tagged this a terrorism investigation because you can't rule that out. We don't know if there's more than that right now, but they'll certainly will do searches. They'll look for, did he have a cell phone on him or an iPhone? Does he have a computer? What else may have been in that Home Depot van that he was driving? Is there paper that will give you some clue? All of that investigators right now are trying to put together to understand what was the motivation that caused the truck driver to do this.
We do, as I've mentioned, we do not yet have an identity on the suspect, the truck driver. If police wait to give us that information, Fran, why would that be?
Because, just as I say, they'll withhold the name until they know more about him, particularly where he lives or where he was residing and with whom, because they'll want to conduct searches. And what they won't want to have happen is anyone related to this guy destroy evidence. And so right now, I'm sure police know who the truck driver is, but they'll hold on to that information until they can gather more and potentially get search warrants to conduct searches for evidence.
Mm-hmm. Pat, Milton, let me bring you back in if I could. Pat, what do we know from the NYPD at this point about how it seems like they actually got to the scene here pretty quickly? We've lost Pat. I'm sorry. Let me just go back over the details here for a moment, if I could. As we've reported, at least 6 people are dead in what the New York Police Department is calling a deliberate act. They are investigating it as an act of terrorism. A truck driver at about 3:15 p.m. Appeared to go over the curb and onto a bicycle path along the West Side Highway by the Hudson River in Lower Manhattan of New York City. He proceeded for about 4 blocks, and that's the route that you can see there, right by the river. He proceeded for about 4 blocks, hitting everybody in his way along that bicycle path. Pedestrians, cyclists. We've seen photographs earlier of bicycles littered along that pathway. It's not clear how it occurred, but he ended up off the bicycle path back in the road where he may have hit a school bus broadside. Reports on that are unclear. But there is the truck of the suspect that we're talking about, the rental Home Depot truck. As you can see, there's a severe impact at the front end. After that impact, the suspect got out of the truck holding what the New York Police Department described as 2 fake firearms. He was then shot in the leg and apprehended and taken to Bellevue Hospital here in New York City. At this point, we know very little more than that, but I want to try to go back to DeMarco Morgan, who is, I believe, still at the scene and can tell us what if anything, he has an eyewitness with him. DeMarco?
Well, Anthony, we have the young man right now. This is the one who shot that video of the man who appears to have a gun. Real quick, say your first and last name for me.
My first name is Tawhid, Tawhid, and my last name is Kabir, Kabir.
Okay, so what exactly did you see? We saw the video. Explain the cell phone video and how did you get it?
Okay, so I was on the bridge. So I just went to the bridge to see the accident because I saw a truck, Home Depot truck is just hit by something. So I thought it's an accident. I didn't heard any gunshots or anything. So I was on the top. Then I saw the guy with 2 guns. He's running in the middle of the street, and the other students of the Stuyvesant on the bridge, they told me they are he has the gunshots, he has a gun and the cops are at him. So suddenly then I heard the gunshots. Then I just went down because I was scared, and the other students too. So after the guns, 5-6 gunshots, I didn't know which parts the gunshots coming from. I just heard it. Then I saw the guy. He is down on the ground, and the cops just got him. 3-4.
And what were you seeing? What were people doing? Were they running? Were they panicking in the area?
The other students with me, I had total 5-6 people on the bridge. They are all so scared. Like they were running, they were just standing, they were just watching what happened, but they were scared. They were the students of the Stuyvesant, and I'm from the BMCC.
And we're told there are multiple people. There could be several people dead. Did you see any bodies?
No, I didn't see any bodies, but the students, they told me like there are 4 bodies they saw. But I asked them, is there any students? They said, no, there's no students.
And instantly, why did you take out your cell phone and start rolling on this?
I thought it's just an accident, and I was just Snapchatting it. So when I saw the guy with 2 guns, then I heard the gunshots, I got it's really something.
And now that you know that this was a serious incident.
This was a serious incident. Like, I was so scared at that part when I heard the gunshots, like the real gunshots.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm sure you're going to have to turn that video over to police. Thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate it. Again, Anthony, it's very, very frantic out here. You got a lot of people trying to walk in between us as well. Some people trying to get to their homes, which is on the other side of this block right here. Sean, if I could get you to pan to the right for me, my right. You can see this area is being sort of cordoned off by police. We can't give you, actually, if we come forward, let's see if we can come forward real quick. Anthony, if you could try to move it forward. Let's see if we can get in the street before we get put out by cops and see if we can give you this little view. Right here, you can see down this street, you see it's a lot of police presence in this area. Clearly a large investigation, still bringing out little gurneys right there, stretchers. We've seen a number of ambulances still going into this area, which we're being pushed back. Even right now, we're going to have to get back on the sidewalk. But if you look at the amount of people, just the crowds, just look at that corner over there. It's every single corner of this block. I'm still surprised that they're even letting traffic come down Greenwich Street. This is Greenwich and Chambers. At any given time, any given moment, Monday through Friday, between the hours of 6 a.m., 7 p.m., this place is packed with tons of people. We have producers out here who also are working sources. We've spoken with many of the students. Many of the people you see in this crowd are high school students, some sprinkled with the folks who work here in the financial district. We're just about, 3-4 blocks away from the World Trade Center. You have tons of tourists who are in this area. You have tons of people who commute from New Jersey, from Connecticut, from many places across the 5 boroughs of New York City to this one heavily populated area just to call this place work, and some who live here in this area. But again, Anthony, you talked about that bike path, which is not too far. It's just a couple of blocks down the street where you see this emergency vehicle coming through, these emergency vehicles coming through. It's not far from where we are. People bike to work, people walk to work, people run to work. This is a pedestrian city here. So the fact that he was able to even use that vehicle to do some damage is not surprising. But now police appear to have the situation under control, and we should get an update at some point. We've been seeing cell phone videos, not just from the guy that we just interviewed, but also we have another video that we're going to try to turn around and get to our viewers so you can see what's going on. But for now, Anthony, we'll send things back to you.
Yeah. Again, at least 6 people dead in what New York Police Department is calling a deliberate act, and they are investigating it as a terrorist act. Where DeMarco was standing is just a very short distance from the World Trade Center, a little further downtown. If you went east from where DeMarco was standing, a matter of 4 or 5 blocks, you would be at New York City Hall. The New York Stock Exchange is a very short drive from there. So you really are in the heart of downtown Manhattan here. And as I mentioned, this incident occurred at 3:15 p.m. The police department was there pretty quickly, it appears, although we don't have a precise time of their arrival. This incident was over apparently pretty fast, and that may the reason for that may be the significant police presence in lower Manhattan. DeMarco, if I can go back to you for a second, I want you can you sort of give me, sort of set the scene precisely where you are relative to that part of lower Manhattan?
Okay, sure. If we actually can pan up top, Sean, can you give us a pan to the World Trade Center? This is just a few blocks. We're literally about 4 or 5 blocks from the World Trade Center, not too far from Westfield Mall, not too far from Chelsea Piers, which is just a couple of blocks up the way. So this area, again, there's a Whole Foods down here for folks who know this area as well. Battery Park, which is directly across the street, directly across the West Side Highway. A lot of families call that place home. You have small children who play in a number of those parks. They got a little soccer fields and baseball fields, you name it. So the area is always filled with people out here. And just to set the scene again for you, investigators out here, they have every corner blocked. The presence of NYPD is known. Most certainly, you still have school buses and small children who have been walking through with their Halloween costumes. Some people are forgetting that it is Halloween, and at first some of the witnesses that we spoke with said they thought indeed that it could have been a prank. Someone else that we talked to said they thought it may have been a movie shoot. You shoot movies all the time here in New York City, so they didn't realize it was real until they saw the people, the victims, who were apparently on the ground after being struck by that vehicle or possibly shot by that vehicle. Again, you can see the emergency vehicles just coming through. They're sort of keeping us at a distance, and we should get an update at some point. But again, high school students who were out here said they took off running. They were literally running down the street in this direction where we're standing, where police have pretty much like kept us at bay. But we're running in this direction when they saw that vehicle. Apparently, the driver of that vehicle taking it and using it as a weapon on strangers, on people who were just literally enjoying the bike trail, maybe enjoying a normal walk or skateboarding, whatever. You have it on that bike trail. So again, this scene here, Anthony, it is very active, very hectic. I'm sort of getting a little wave from the cops to get out of the street, so I'm going to obey him in just a second. But it is people absolutely everywhere out here.
All right, DeMarco, we want to take a first look at the video that you referred to, shot by an eyewitness. Here it is. It appears to show the suspect leaving the vehicle. This is the first time we've seen it too, so we're watching it with you. Yeah, holding what police say was a fake gun. All right, so again, that was, we're going to re-cue it and take a look at it one more time. The eyewitness described that he was shooting from a bridge over the West Side Highway. That is the man who drove the truck shortly after his truck impacted another vehicle and he had to get out and flee. He was subsequently, a short time after this, shot by police and apprehended. We do not have an identity on this suspect, and we know very little other than what we have reported to you so far. We are awaiting a briefing from the New York City Police, possibly within about half an hour. Mayor Bill de Blasio is on the scene. Much of Lower Manhattan on the west side is shut down right now as police investigate this scene along the West Side Highway, as DeMarco pointed out, just a matter of a few blocks from the World Trade Center, where that truck, that Home Depot rental truck, went off the West Side Highway and onto a bicycle path that runs along the Hudson River and drove for approximately 4 blocks, hitting everyone and anything in his path. It's not clear just how long that incident lasted. It began about 3:15 p.m. As the eyewitness related, there were many people there who thought this was some kind of Halloween prank. Even the gunshots they heard, they thought were some kind of prank. It was not a prank. It is now being called a deliberate act by the New York Police Department, and they are investigating it as a possible terrorist attack. And as Fran Townsend, who was with us shortly, our CBS News national security analyst a short time ago, said, police are going to be going through all forms of identity of this suspect, checking out where he lives, checking out how he got this vehicle, to determine what motive there may be for what has occurred here today. Again, it does not appear it actually lasted very long, but there are at least 6 people dead and what appears to be over a dozen more injured at this point. You can see the streets closed off. As DeMarco Morgan said, there is very little happening down there other than this investigation at this point in time. A major center of activity in New York City, down by the financial district, not far from New York City Hall, by the World Trade Center, has come to a standstill in the aftermath of this incident. There is the school bus we mentioned earlier, which, as Pat Milton said, was hit broadside. We do not know if any children were in that bus, and if they were, what condition they may be in. The exact details of how this incident ended are still somewhat unclear. The man driving the truck was on the bike path for a period of time, but he ended up back in the street. It appears he rammed the school bus and then may have rammed another vehicle before he came to a stop. And as you saw in this video, that is him fleeing on foot before the New York City Police Department and others down there stopped him and apprehended him after shooting him in the leg. The actual number of injured at this point is still unclear, but the conditions of that school bus obviously are quite concerning. We have witnesses who say they saw it being hit, but we don't have details of who may have been in it or if anyone was injured. There you see the scene along the bicycle path, and there are hundreds of bikers out on a day like this going up and down the length of Manhattan along that bike path. Bike paths, runners, bicyclists, runners, people just taking a walk. As you can see, that's the route the truck drove down the bike path along the West Side Highway. That's West Street and Chambers Street right there. The World Trade Center is very close to that. I believe that bridge you see there is where the eyewitness that DeMarco Morgan spoke to would have shot the video of the truck driver fleeing the vehicle. There is that bridge as you see it, and as you can see on the street below, dozens of police and ambulance first responders there to try to make sense of what has happened here. Again, it started at 3:15 p.m. And was over fairly quickly. Police managed to get to the scene and apprehend the truck driver before he could get away. You are watching continuing coverage here on CBS News of the incident in New York City where a truck ran onto a bicycle path and rammed pedestrians and bicyclists, killing at least 6 people and injuring over a dozen in what the New York Police Department is calling a deliberate act. It is being investigated as a terrorist attack. We do not know much at this point beyond the fact that the suspect is in custody. He drove for about 4 blocks, hitting everything and everyone in his path before his truck ended up back onto the West Side Highway. It appears to have collided or rammed broadside a school bus. Again, it's not clear. There's the school bus. It's not clear at this point who was inside or if anyone was injured. I believe it then subsequently hit another vehicle, and then the gunman was forced to get out of his truck. There he is fleeing on foot before police shot him in the leg and apprehended him. And we're going to go now to DeMarco Morgan, who is down at the scene. DeMarco?
Anthony, again, we spoke to a witness who shot that video for us, who shot the video of the man with what appeared to be guns. We're still trying to figure out whether or not they were fake or authentic guns here. But he said that he at first thought it was an accident or some type of accident or even a prank, a Halloween prank. And then he realized that it was a serious situation when he noticed that there were multiple bodies on the ground. Now, where we are, we're standing just a couple of blocks away again from the World Trade Center, just to give people a perspective who have been to New York, live in New York, and travel here often. We're not far from where that incident happened. This right here is Chambers, Greenwich off to the side here, and this area has pretty much been the makeshift, the setup place for where they are trying to give us information, but they're now going to move down to one police headquarters just to give us an update. But because of that, so many people have been coming to this area just trying to figure out whether or not they can get home, get back to the school to pick up some items. Some people had after school activities they can't. Some of the high school school students who attend Stuyvesant, which is not too far from here. But when I talked to some of those students, they said they immediately took off running after they saw what happened in that area, after they heard gunshots. They're not sure if they were coming from the gunman or may have been coming from NYPD that was basically trying to subdue the suspect and get the situation under control. But they said they heard the gunshots. They immediately took off running for safety, running for their life. So you have a number of students in this area. So parents, if you are trying to reach your kids, if you can't reach them by cell phone, this may be a good starting point. If you can catch the train, the 2, 3, or the 1, or the 5 and 6, the corner is Greenwich and Chambers Street if you are looking for your loved ones in this area. We've also seen little small children walking through here with their Halloween costumes. Hard to believe that today is Halloween, but when you hear of situations like this, it's like, whoa, this could indeed happen. Not because of that holiday, but a lot of people are like, okay, wait a minute, where they shooting a movie? They shoot movies all the time in New York City. Even some of the people we spoke with thought they were shooting a movie at the time and then realized that it was indeed the real deal. We've seen a number of emergency vehicles continue to come through this street. You can see the one right here behind me. Several ambulances making their way. Terrence, if I could get you just to pan over in this area, this is what all four corners look like in the neighborhood. A lot of people, again, like I said, trying to get home because you have Battery Park, which is a heavily residential area. A lot of families with small kids live in Battery Park. This is also my neighborhood, the Wall Street district. You have a lot of people who call it home. But you also got to think about the millions of people who travel to this place every year, but thousands on a daily basis. So when this incident happened around 3 o'clock or so, or a little after 3, there were so many people in this area. It's not only home to the financial district, but the financial capital of the world. So people are here, they're traveling, and then the West Side Highway at any given time is always packed full of drivers, you name it. But that bike trail that we've also been talking about, where the incident happened, Anthony, a lot of people, they bike to work. I take a run. Many of us take runs on that same bike track. So it's not impossible to get a vehicle up there. And one of the ladies that I spoke with, she said it was just a matter of time. We've seen it happen across the country, well, across the entire world, and it was just a matter of time when it could happen here in this city, because it is most certainly a pedestrian city.
DeMarco, thanks. I want to remind people we are standing by for a briefing by the New York City Police Department, which is expected within a short time from now. They have tweeted out some details of this incident. Not a great deal of information, but it was the New York Police Department who put out word through Twitter that the suspect had been apprehended after he had fled his truck after the truck had a collision on the off the West Side Highway, and that he had gotten out of that vehicle with what appeared to be firearms, but they turned out to be fake, and that the police subsequently shot him in the leg and were able to apprehend him. What we do know at this point is this incident. I mean, DeMarco described the circumstances down there. This is a very crowded, busy part of the city. Although it could have at certain other times it could have been even more crowded. And we're looking at some of the injured who have been taken to the area hospitals down there. As we've mentioned before, there are at least 6 dead. The number of injured is still not clear, but it appears to be more than a dozen. We're waiting for official word on that. The incident, which began about 3:15, does not appear to have lasted long, and the driver was on the bike path for about 4 blocks before he returned, and it's not clear why, into the street where he collided, rammed broadside, it appears, a school bus. There is the school bus, and subsequently, I believe, hit another vehicle. And it was at that point that he was forced to get out of the Home Depot rental truck that he used essentially as his weapon. We have on the phone CBSN security analyst Paul Violas. Paul, as I mentioned to our national security analyst Fran Townsend a short time ago, this is a dispiritingly similar scene to some we've seen in Europe. Do we have Paul?
Yes.
Paul, can you hear me?
I can, Anthony. I can hear you.
This scene that we're looking at, Paul, is hauntingly similar to some we've seen in Europe.
No question about that. In fact, I really believe that when the smoke clears on this, there are going to be comparisons made to the incident in Nice where a vehicle was intentionally used, a rental vehicle was intentionally used as a weapon of mass destruction. Clearly, this is an intentional act, and the New York City Police Department is not going to rush to give information. They're going to be very, very cautious, as I'm sure that as you would expect them to be. But I truly believe when you see this, especially that it was a deliberate act, that this was simulating that type of attack.
Right. We're looking at pictures now, Paul, of the FBI there on the scene in front of the vehicle that was used in the attack, a rental truck from Home Depot that was, as you can see, the severely impacted in the front in a collision. We're not sure how this car was involved in the scene, and the details of how this incident ended in terms of who the truck driver collided with are still very blurry at this point. We do know, as I said, that the school bus was rammed broadside. Paul?
You're going to find, Anthony, at this point that the police department has, the real-time crime center, and they're going to be collecting data right now using the artificial intelligence attached to the cameras to forensically look at this incident. Where did this vehicle come from? And who may have interacted with that vehicle blocks away, et cetera, and reenact the entire incident. So once that's all done, they're going to have a plethora of information regarding where the vehicle came from, the trajectory, and what may have appeared, clearly intentional and what may not have been.
It's the vehicle that was used as the weapon, Paul, a Home Depot rental truck. I mean, that's a fairly easy vehicle to rent, is it not?
No, there's no question about that, Anthony. I mean, it's along the same lines as any other kind of rental vehicle, which is why, and I agree with what Fran said earlier. Right now, there's a multi-layer investigation going on, and part of that's going to look at the driver. They're going to do a deep dive on the driver. They're going to get his phone, his devices. They're going to forensically trace everybody he's spoken to. So they're going to look at the driver. They're going to look at the truck, who was associated with the truck. They're going to look to see if there were contents in the truck. As I mentioned before, part of that investigation is going to be using the AI or the artificial intelligence inside the cameras to assist us in really completely understanding what this individual was doing and what his intent was at that point. So where we stand right now is there's a tremendous amount of intelligence gathering going on by the police department. On the positive side, a police department that is more than prepared to deliver very solid, very efficient, very expeditious results.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, point to viewers is that I don't think it's going to be long. I'm sure they're not going to rush it, but I don't think it's going to be long before we have a solid answer.
Paul, I mean, to your point, if this is a terrorist incident, there may be no better prepared police department to handle it than the NYPD, correct?
I would have to agree with you 100%, and I'm not just saying that because this is hometown. I'm saying that because New York City has spent an enormous amount of money, time, energy, and effort since 9/11 in examining our vulnerabilities, recognizing world-class leaders like London with respect to the cameras, understanding the changes we needed to make. And not just that, Anthony, but also the amount of training that goes in from the New York City Police Department. And, all of our citizens in the city see it, and all of the tourists and folks that come visit us here see it. The exercises that are conducted constantly. And it's for things like this. So I was listening to you comment earlier and obviously agreed with you with respect to the expeditious manner in which the police department responded. This is not by accident. This is the result of good, solid training.
All right, Paul, stay with us. We want to go down to the scene with DeMarco Morgan, who has an eyewitness, a student who was there when this unfolded. DeMarco?
Yeah, Anthony, this is Ruben Cabrera. He's a student at the Borough of Manhattan Community College. You said when you first saw what was happening, you thought it was a prank. Tell us about it.
Yeah, when I first heard the gunshots go off, I saw kids running in the opposite direction laughing. So initially I thought it was a prank, and the location we're at, I'm like, that can't possibly be a shooting. And so I walk over and I see EMS coming, police officers running over, and then I'm like, this really just happened.
And you realized that it was a serious situation when you saw bodies covered?
Yeah, I saw in the bike lane, I saw 2 bodies covered with white sheets, and I saw bikes next to them, and the bikes didn't look like the bikes looked like they were run over by a vehicle. And then I looked over to my left, I see another body on the floor with EMS trying to assist them, and what appeared to be a Home Depot pickup truck just crushed from running into a light post.
And again, tell us, for those who may not be from New York City but may visit this area, where were you exactly, your vantage point to where you could see all of this, and what made you pull out your phone and start rolling on it? Because you got video as well.
Yeah, well, I was in front of BMCC, and then when I heard everything go down, I walked over. There's a bridge which helps the kids cross over rather than actually crossing in the street to keep them out of traffic. I went up the bridge because it's clear windows and you could see everything that's happening from up there. So I went up there, and both sides of the bridge, one side you can see the bodies that appear to be run over with the bikes, and the other side you could see the pickup truck that was crashed and with another gentleman on the floor.
And I've been talking to Anthony, our anchor there back in the network, and the people who are watching. This area is so congested with a ton of people, especially students. You attend BMCC. Talk about the amount of people that were in that area at the time that this was going on.
Well, I would say it's more than usual because from what I can tell, school must have just let out because more kids were coming from across the street, which is I think a high school and a junior high school, and I can see the kids coming out. So it's populated as is. It's hard to walk in the street as is, but with school just letting out, there was even more people than normal walking.
We've seen situations like this happen in other parts of the entire world. Are you surprised that this happened here in New York City, especially being in that it's a pedestrian city?
I lived in New York City my whole life, so I'm surprised it happened down here, yes, but surprised that it happened at all, no, because anything can happen in New York.
Just a matter of time.
Yeah.
All right, Ruben Cabrera, thank you so much for talking to us. We appreciate it. Anthony, we'll send things back to you.
All right, DeMarco, thanks. We want to listen to some audio here in a moment, but first just let me set the scene. This is New York Police Department audio, two-way radio traffic from an officer describing the chilling scene on the bike path as that officer comes rushing up to the scene. Let's listen.
There's multiple people on the ground, Central. We need buses from Houston all the way down to Chambers. I got 4 or 5 people on the ground. Street. We need buses all the way up to Houston, though, Central. Having an issue, respond to location forthwith. We have people pinned. 1 CO Central, activated level 1. We got multiple casualties. This is a mass casualty situation here. Watt Street. They thought you guys further on. All right, there's guys. Stop transmitting.
All right, there you see the scene that the officer is describing. You heard him say, we need buses, we have multiple casualties. This was as he was approaching the bike path down which the driver took his truck ramming people. You saw the mangled bicycles that littered that bike path after he went down about 4 blocks, hitting everything in his way. You're looking there at the truck that he drove. It's a Home Depot rental truck. As you can see, the front end has been severely banged up. That's what caused him to get out of the vehicle and flee, which was when police had the opportunity to apprehend him. We're waiting for a police department, a New York City Police Department press conference, which we're expecting any moment now. We've had a little bit of information from the police so far today via Twitter and our reporters down on the scene, but there are still a lot of unanswered questions here. We know that at least 6 people are dead. The number of injuries appears to be above a dozen, but we don't have an exact number yet. The gunman was shot in the leg after he fled and apprehended and taken to Bellevue Hospital here in New York City, but we don't have any further information on him yet, and we may not get any. We may not get an identity. Our security sources say as police try to get as much information as they can about him. to determine just what exactly were the motive of this incident. It is being called a deliberate act. It is being investigated as an act of terrorism. That is the gunman on the left there fleeing the scene after his truck came to a stop after the collision. He appeared to hit multiple vehicles after he came off the bike path. There are some of the casualties arriving at area hospitals. He appeared to hit multiple vehicles, including a school bus, which was rammed broadside. But again, we don't have details on who was in that bus and whether anyone was injured. This is an incredibly busy part of New York City, very close to the financial district, blocks away from the World Trade Center, just a few blocks away from City Hall, where, of course, the mayor of New York City works. The governor is on his way. We have seen the mayor down there. We have seen, looking at this, the suspect's vehicle, we have seen the New York City Police and the FBI. I want to try to bring Paul Violas back in if he's still with us. Paul, in a scene like this, as I mentioned, we've seen the FBI down there, we've seen the police. Who all will be down there investigating this scene?
Well, numerous. Well, first you've got NYPD, which is going to control the scene, and then you have FDNY, obviously, because of the mass casualties. And as well, you'll have FBI and you'll have ATF that will be on site. ATF will be there just because there was speculation of the fact that the individual, the driver of the truck, was armed. So ATF will be responding as well. There may be other agencies, but clearly those will be the ones that will be on site right now.
Right. And how important is time in terms of this investigation?
I think right now it's not all that critical. It's most important to place an inner and outer perimeter at the crime scene, because the trace evidence that needs to be collected is imperative at this point. So the police are going to cordon off the area, and then they're going to be very careful about who comes in. That's when they're going to start collecting the evidence. The other part about the time, which is really an excellent question, is really looking more concerning the driver and capturing his phone and his devices, who he calls, who he texts, and going after them and finding and locating them.
Right.
Chances are police are going to find that he planned this with someone. Could have been online, could have been in person. He collaborated with someone. So even though it's one person who did it, they're going to be looking for the other people. So the time there is critical.
We're just a couple of minutes away from a briefing by the New York City Police Department. Paul, so quickly, if you would, in terms of what are the key bits of information they're going after most quickly here?
They're going after his pedigree, who he is, where he's from, where he lived, where he's traveled. You've got Homeland Security and ICE will be looking into the international side, as well as everybody that he's communicated with. That's the key part right now, is finding out how this happened through his eyes, vis-a-vis his communications and his travel. That's going to be the key part right now. That's critical.
Paul, you know this stretch of highway here in New York. I mean, I hesitate to say this, but this could have been significantly worse.
There's no question about that. But then when we look at Manhattan, it could have been a lot worse in a lot of other areas. I do find it interesting that because the fact that it happened at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe, and the way that I would look at this right now is the time is intentional, because you would think children are getting out of school. It's Halloween. The streets are going to be crowded. So it even goes more to really the mens rea, or the intent of the individual, with respect to how this was planned.
Anybody who's driven down that stretch of road has to recognize, that that's a very vulnerable spot for something like this. But how do you protect against it?
You really don't. I mean, it's as much as I wish I could say that you did, that you can. We can't seal off every sidewalk. We simply just can't. We can't do that. We're going to start looking more closely at scrutinizing people that are renting vehicles like trucks.
All right,
I
Paul.
can tell you that there's no question. Yeah.
All right, Paul. With the New York Police Department is about to begin their briefing, we're going to go to that now.